am here. I'm
You
writing notes to
sneaky.
myself. I'm writing notes. Must not short Apple. Must not short markets. Although must not short anything.
I put
What a
that sticky
market.
note on too. I've got the three. I got the little sticky pad too. Do not short Apple. Do not short Apple. It just keeps going higher, Nick. When is this gonna end?
This is a hard. You said it earlier today. It's a hard market to short,
So
but
hard.
it's also a hard market to go long with conviction. I mean, if you're going long, you better be with your finger on the trigger to be able to book profits. And it's just puzzling all the experts too. So anybody that's in the retail investing that feels like they're missing a few pieces of the puzzle, don't worry about it. Everybody's missing a few pieces of the puzzle. Apple is in beast mode, and it's like it's as if the bulls are tag teaming which variable they want to ride the coattails. Okay, what's running now? Oil. Okay, let's run with oil. Oil starts dropping. Okay, what's running now? Rates are running. All right, we'll run with rates. And what rates take a break? Let's run with Apple. And so you really have to be strategic in what you do every week and how you do it.
Nick, looking at Apple, I mean, we've talked to a few other traders, and they had their targets at 128, 129. Taking their profits, then they're sitting on the sidelines. When a stock gets in this kind of, as you said, beast mode, do you try? I mean, do you have a way to come up with any targets? I mean, I don't. I look at the average daily range, and the range that it had yesterday just blew it away. Do you have a simple way to come up with targets in stocks like this?
It's really hard. You got to find out why it's running. I mean, my strength is figuring out why something is moving and seeing if I can come up with a theory on how to trade it. If I don't know why it's running, at first I thought it was Apple itself buying the stock, which it may have. That was right around the time they announced that they offered some more bonds, and then the theory was okay, it's dividend reimbursement, the reinvestment in the stock. So people putting the money back into the stock that's been paying them so well. And then I thought it was chop trying to trade the indices. People, big money moving the Apple in order to be able to play the indices on a weekly basis. And yesterday it looked like a chug again, like a consistent buying. So I don't know who's doing the buying. I cannot go long it. I mean, I missed the last $15. There's no doubt about it. Easy. But where I don't know what's putting it up here, so it's hard to come up with a smart way to trade it. I guess a long-term investor could say that Apple will be higher years down the line, so buy some leaps. I guess that would be a good way of doing it. Meanwhile, in the short term, I can't buy it with full confidence that I'm going to make money in the mid to short term. So I'm not going to short it via credit spreads, and that would be suicide. But it's hard to go long it. So as far as levels, it's in resistance territory for the last few weeks, and it's been in resistance territory. So I can't use those levels either to short it. Theoretically, it should be at 130 or lower this week, but it's not. It's convincingly over 130,
Is that
and
what the
it's
open
moving.
interest is showing too, there, Nick? That it should be under 130, or what's the open interest showing?
Well, the open interest, just looking at it, tells me that 130 is the center of attention. Anything
Okay.
higher, anything higher should be resistance. Anything lower, maybe small support, but it's
Yeah.
more sentiment support than anything. Nobody's going to sell Apple in a big way, and it's affecting everything. It's a heavyweight in the index. So
Yeah.
the Nasdaq looks like it wants to reach the new high, and maybe they're using Apple to bring the Nasdaq 5,000 again, so we can party with the hats. Uh,
I could break out my 1999 hat.
Yeah, maybe you can dust it off,
Nasdaq
flick it a couple
5000.
of times. Yeah, send it to the cleaners. And maybe they're doing that. I'm not really sure, but theoretically speaking, it should be around 130 this week. But that was the case last week, and the week before it was the case a little bit lower.
125.
So it's really hard to do that. So pick your fight somewhere else. I picked the fight with Priceline yesterday and made over $2.50 per contract in under an hour, maybe an hour and a half or two. I sold way out of the money calls and bought them back $2.50 cheaper just a couple hours later, let's call it.
What did you base that trade on here? I mean, you had the gap and go. You stayed away from it for 2 days. What was your trigger to sell the calls here on Priceline?
I wanted to short the market. and I wanted to short something. I'm already somewhat short, and with some credit put spreads that are bullish ahead of them. So I have a well-balanced portfolio, maybe a little heavier short than long, but cautiously so. So I'm leaving room. Like the markets, I have 5 to 6% room to run before I get into trouble. And I'm picking longer distances trades because you saw last week, the last 2 weeks, we celebrated the Greek deal, quote unquote, which we still don't have over 6 times, maybe 9 times. As a matter of fact, because on Friday we celebrated it 3 times in one day. And it's just the markets want to run on nothing. And you give them a reason to, like the rumor of a deal, they jump, and then another rumor of the deal, and then Michelle Caruso-Cabrera comes on CNBC and says something. So they want to just celebrate everything. And the deal is going to be celebrated again once the Eurozone approved the whatever they delivered last night, the Greeks. They're going through the terms, and this is only for 4 months. So I don't want to pick a fight right here. I want to pick a fight out in time and up away from current prices. This will give me some buffer in case I'm wrong. I can dial it back. So I shorted Priceline based on me wanting to short the markets and finding something that's paying me while I wait. The VIX was high. They were paying almost $24 a contract to short it at 14.65 in October. So I sold it. And I bought it around $22 later in the day, so to close it.
Nick, I want to go back to this Greece thing here because it's kind of my pet peeve too. It seems like every time there was bad news out of Greece, they would sell it off for an hour, but then buy it back. But every time there was good news there, they would buy it all day. So it seems like Greece, where you'd think it'd be a negative for the market, it seemed like a good thing for the market. And every time they get a deal, I mean, they extended 4 months and they buy the hell out of the market. So in another 4 months, we're going to have another deal, and they're probably going to buy the hell out of the market
Yeah,
again. This is like good news for the market. It's just
yeah,
kind of insane.
that's what I said last week. I sent out a tweet. I said, who knew that Greek problems can be so good for markets?
Yeah.
A Greek catastrophe in economically speaking can be so bullish for markets.
I know.
The problem is then they're buying the pops, but they're relief pops because they're relief that something bad didn't happen. That's the definition of a relief pop, and they're usually shortable, and they are. The problem is they're not pricing them out, so they pop, but they don't unpop.
I know.
Usually when you have a relief pop, it started with 2 Thursdays ago when the Ukraine peace deal was signed on a Thursday, I believe, which never happened. It's like, oh, I'll go on a diet, but I'll start next Monday. They never started the diet. They're still fighting, and yet they still mention the truce deal in the Ukraine. What deal? It didn't happen. They signed it on paper. They didn't implement it. They're still fighting. So, and the same day, we had Greek Michelle Caruso-Cabrera, after the market closed, she went out and said, my sources tell me they have a deal, and the markets went wild. The next day, they reported that same deal again. The markets went wild, and the market.
They rallied twice on the same deal.
I know, over 6 times. I counted over 6 times. Last Friday, 3 times alone, just one day. And so they're running, but they're not backtracking and pricing it out. That's why I'm choosing not to fight the fight here. I'm stepping away from trouble, picking out my binoculars, and just looking down range and fighting the battle way ahead, way far away from the current prices, because I don't want to fight with stupid. Like they say, they'll take you down to their level and beat you with experience. So I'm staying away from it and just trying to pick levels if I wanted to go short or long out in time so I can be have a chance to be correct based on fundamentals rather than playing the headline game. Now the headline can work. I said I shorted Priceline, right? But I went long it into the earnings. So the Priceline earnings was a lottery ticket that paid pretty well. And so I had some money to pick on Priceline, so I wouldn't have been too upset had I lost a couple of bucks trying to short it.
Let's move on to some other issues. Facebook got a nice facelift, got back over 80. Really no news on that. It was kind of a delayed. I kind of looked at it as a delayed reaction to their 6-cent beat on earnings here. The whole number of 80 kind of held up, but then again it didn't. 80.34, your high on Friday. 80.19, your high yesterday's session. Closed back down under 79. Are we going to sneak right back into this 4-month trading range here? Perhaps test 76 or get back into 74s?
It's hard to pick. It's been quiet. It's been out of the news. It hasn't had the center of attention. And I would not be surprised to see it move higher if the markets maintain. Now, everything I say has the caveat of if the markets maintain these levels. We are at super extended levels, and just look at the Nasdaq. If you pull up the 20-year, I keep saying it, we are at the top of the dot-com bubble. On a monthly closing basis, we're higher than that. So this is dangerous territory. I would not be too worried about the market in general before I tackle Facebook in particular, had it not been on frothy pops, and that creates a little void, a fundamental void underneath. So I'm not too convinced that we should be this high. So having said that, Facebook could meander up, but let me check the open interest. I have not checked it in a while because it has been off my radar. It's been a guy that usually is hard to time. So let's check. As far as this week is concerned, 80 seemed to be where it could have some resistance, 80, maybe a little bit lower. And as far as support, I don't see any flagrant support there, maybe starting at 77 and change. If I step out in time, and sometimes I say something has resistance at a price that's lower than now, that means that resistance may act as a magnet downwards. That's a question. But this week seems like 80 should, find some difficulty to go higher. So if somebody wants to short it via credit call spreads, it wouldn't be too crazy if there is no catalyst for it this week. If there is a catalyst this week, I would step away. But it seems like it has an area above 72.5 that it's traded for the last, I don't know, eyeballing it 6 months or so, and it wants to consolidate to get to a higher level. So if I pull a 2-year chart, and the reversion to the mean would put it higher than here, if you want to plot a linear regression line and you want to go up along this line. But I need to study its fundamentals better. I'm not too convinced that everybody's spending hours on Facebook like they report. I have Facebook, a couple accounts. I don't use either. And my kid doesn't use it either, and he's 13. So.
And I know you've been kind of a Twitter fan here, that you like the Twitter, the product, and we're waiting to figure out how they can monetize it here. It's had a great run since the earnings report, but it has run into a little bit of resistance at this $50 level. We got up there and kissed it 2 days ago, up at 49.88. And now we're just kind of hanging out here just under 50. First, I just want to ask you about the open interest for this week in Twitter, and then secondly, your overall thoughts on it.
Yeah, when I said plug your nose and buy Twitter, it was in the 30s. So
the trade's been made. Easy money's been made.
Yeah, that
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. That statement doesn't apply anymore, not blindly. So the open interest, as I'm looking at it here, is it should have some resistance somewhere around. I can't eyeball it from here. My PC is not cooperating. 48-ish, 47, 48, some sort of a resistance this week. Does it have any events this week? No. As far as next March week, so the first week of March is options. 50 looks like it's going to find a lot more resistance at 50, and some support, but nothing to speak of. So if I were to short anything, I could short Twitter, but I don't want to short it via credit spreads because this is one that's headline worthy. So I would be likely to buy some close to the money debit put spreads. And there's also that big open gap, so maybe they want to fill that at some point. So what I would do is I would give myself time to be right, and I'll go out in time and buy some sort of a broken wing debit put spread, but close to the money, so I don't have to guess not only direction of the move, but also magnitude of the move. So if I want to bet negative on it, I'll just bet at the line and pay up the money for it.
How about Home Depot here blowing away? I mean, they beat by a penny, but they did the buyback. They raised the dividend, trading up $1.32. Hit 116.65. What are you thinking about Home Depot here today?
You guys said it best. I think it was Dennis. Not fading it. That's what I would do. I missed it. I let it run. This is probably a Kramer fave, so I wouldn't touch it now. I can't go long.
He'll come out tonight on Mad Money and pump it further, probably.
Right. Bye. And so I don't have the conviction to go long it, and I'm too scared to short it. So I'll step away and I say I missed that one. I'm not too convinced Well, I don't know. Maybe the extra money we're saving on gas, we're buying cars and we're investing in some of our lawns and lawn chairs. Maybe I'm not sure. I wish they told me. I mean, maybe they say it in the conference call, but I don't follow it that closely. Where the surprise income came from, um, eh, retail, or because they do have a lot of pros that buy there. So if it's pros, then it's a home construction, home building type of a deal. If it's retail, then it's people like you and me trying to invest some money into our backyards and kitchens and things like that. So,
Okay, one more ticker for you here. A lot of news in the solar sector. I don't know if
oh
you
yeah,
SPWR getting a boost here. Any is that the stock you follow or trade or any thoughts on this one?
I don't, but do have an opinion that's pretty important to solar, and I think I could be wrong. My thesis here is that Apple getting into the game is kind of legitimizing the whole idea of solar power, which to me it's baffling how it's not like the norm. I mean, especially in places like California and other sunny areas like Florida and California. Why isn't every house powered partly hybrid of sorts with solar and wind and all of that? And Apple getting into the game, or supposedly getting into the game by poaching battery people. So that's kind of solar, and maybe it legitimizes the whole industry, and I wouldn't dare shorting them right now, even though, like you mentioned, SunPower, it's down, 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 wild, but it's down. So maybe a long-term commitment to the premier players in that, maybe for solar, I don't know, but it's worth a look as an industry.
Okay, Nic Chahine, Marketfy Maven, and the author of Create Income with Option Spread. Nick, thanks for joining us. Great information as always. We'll talk to you again next Tuesday.
Pleasure, guys. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thanks, Nick.
Dennis, can you get these S&Ps to move a little bit here?
They are just sitting here. Holy cow. I hate these 3-point ranges. I need action. We need movement. If you're trading the financials, though, you got some action, I tell you. JP Morgan has come off those highs. Joel, was a good number you gave up there at 61. It's pulled back 33 cents from that pre-market high. Did short a little bit of stock up there. I'll have to see. I'm hoping it can come in a little bit more before I cover, but obviously it's going to be strong here today. But I was looking at some of the sympathy plays, and some of those are coming back down, too. I have shorted Citigroup. I've shorted Wells Fargo. So I'm starting to short a few of these financials. I shorted them earlier there in the pre-market, thinking about covering here probably on the open because I think it is still going to be a strong sector.
Okay, Pfizer, is that coming down at all anymore?
Pfizer's still just hanging out here, 34.22, so it's down 17 cents. Sell balance is still significant, 367,000 shares. I cover a little bit of stock at 34.14. I'm sitting here just still short the stock, though. I'm probably going to be covering the opening print.
Yeah.
And like you say, maybe I should reverse and go long.
And SF Bright here says solar only works for you if you can see the sun. And I don't know, Brianna was.
We don't see the sun in Detroit.
Yeah,
it's just clouded all the time.
I miss the sun so much.
I don't see any solar farms popping up around here.
We actually have them in Canada. We do have quite a few, and I've got one project that I did. I did a small solar panel project there, and the difference though is in Ontario you get government subsidies for doing these things. So the government, supports it because it is expensive, and I think that's the problem. The initial cost is very expensive to get these solar things up and running. So, but if you can get the government subsidies to help you out, then it can make some sense. So without government subsidies, though, it's difficult to just go and say, I'm going to convert my house over to solar because the initial cost is so expensive.
I know the Ford headquarters announced, and I don't know if they've done it yet, but their headquarters they're gonna have a parking lot with the entire roof is gonna be solar panels. So, and I've seen a ton of places downtown Detroit too that have solar panels for roofs, so we get a little bit of sun here.
Yep. Okay.
It's not in the winter.
I'm just taking a look, and Ace has been mentioning this a few different days. Baba trying to find a home here at $85. Yeah, I mean, gosh, it's kind of tough. I mean, it came down there in the pre-market. I'm looking at the low that it just had, 85.05. The low from yesterday here, 85 and a quarter. Another low in the lower 85s. I guess I would try it here, but this would be one with if you got a weak market, I might be tempted to try short if it goes through that level because, not very often you get a support like that, and since the earnings, every consolidation this thing's had is led to lower prices.
It kind of looks like it wants to test that low that we set back in the Ebola low on October 15th at 82.81. And obviously, we're going to have to see it. That's what it needs to hold. If you're trying to pick bottoms here, you're 3 points off it right now. But kind of to me, I think that might be where it's heading here. But full disclosure, I did start an investment position in Bob. I do want to add a little bit more to it. And I might be adding down there in the 82.
Okay, Dennis, we'll let you go here. S&Ps are up 50 cents here, 221.07 and a quarter. Got our resistance above at the two highs from Friday and Monday. But we'll let you go. It's 8:55. It's time for Brianna to give us the morning headline.
Well, it's Tuesday, February 24th, and two Syrian activist groups said today that ISIS terrorists have abducted at least 70 Assyrian Christians after overrunning a number of small villages in the northeast of that country. The extremist fighters swept through the Assyrian villages nestled along the banks of the Khabur River near the town of Tal Tamir in Hasaka province around dawn on Monday. Sky News reported that control of the region is split between ISIS and opposing Kurdish fighters. Edging toward a historic compromise, the U.S. and Iran reported progress Monday on a deal that would clamp down on Tehran's nuclear activities for at least 10 years, but then slowly ease restrictions on programs that could be used to make atomic arms. Officials said there were still obstacles to overcome before a March 31st deadline, and any deal will face harsh opposition in both countries. It would also be sure to further strain already tense U.S. relations with Israel, whose leaders oppose any agreement that doesn't end Iran's nuclear ambitions. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is expected to strongly criticize the deal in an address before Congress next week. U.S. President Barack Obama warned on Monday that a partial shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security would suspend pay for more than 100,000 Border Patrol, port inspection, and airport security agents. Homeland Security spending authority will expire at midnight on Friday unless Congress approves new funding. While essential security personnel would still report to work, there will be no money to pay them during the funding lapse. A new $39.7 billion budget for the department is stalled in Congress over Republican authored provisions to block any spending on Obama's recent executive orders that lift the threat of deportation from millions of undocumented immigrants. Republicans who control the U.S. Senate will try for a fourth time to advance the measure later on Monday, but it was expected to fall short again of the needed 60 votes as Democrats rejected it. Even if it were to pass, Obama has threatened to veto the measure unless immigration restrictions are stripped. Google Wallet just got a little more firepower in the mobile payments war. Today, Google said that U.S. wireless carriers AT&T, Verizon Wireless, and T-Mobile will pre-install its Google Wallet payments app on Android phones sold by the carriers this year. In addition to the distribution deal, Google also acquired technology and intellectual property from SoftCard, formerly known as ISIS Mobile Wallet, a joint venture from those same wireless carriers. SoftCard has been offering its own mobile payments tool since 2012, and this technology will now be rolled into upcoming versions of Google Wallet. And compared with other recreational drugs, including alcohol, marijuana may be even safer than previously thought, and researchers may be systematically underestimating risks associated with alcohol use. Those are the top line findings of recent research published in the journal Scientific Reports, a subsidiary of Nature. Researchers sought to quantify the risk of death associated with the use of a variety of commonly used substances. They found that at the level of individual use, alcohol was the deadliest substance, followed by heroin and cocaine. And on Tuesday, Alaska's new marijuana law officially goes into effect, which means that as of February 24th, recreational weed is now a legal substance in 3 states. Oregon is set to follow in July. Just a quick reminder, our show is brought to you by our friends at Nadex, where you can find protection from market spikes and opportunities in flat markets using binary options. Open an account today with no fees and only $100 as your minimum deposit. Tell them your friends at Benzinga sent you. If you miss any part of today's show, you can listen to the whole thing again on our podcast. Find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher by searching hashtag pre-market. And don't forget to tune into our next special segment all about crude oil, February 27th. That's this Friday, where you can discover the most profitable investments in the energy sector right now for free with experts like Doug Cass, Dennis Gartman, Ron Insana, and many more. Look out for some links in the chat room to learn more about that. It's about 9 o'clock. Joel, shall we go grab our next guest?
Yes, Todd Schoenberger, president of J. Stryker Asset Management LLC, and This guy's been a perma bull. We'll see if he's sticking with his bullish thesis. We'll be right back with Todd.